So the custom field preservation tool was created in order to be able to preserve your original custom field values. So we've had people in the past where they'll come through and we'll capture the data, we'll set the custom fields, and then later they'll come back through again using a different URL, and those original field values got overwritten with the new field values. So that's how custom fields work. They can be overwritten upon each form submission, and we've had several people request this feature where they can preserve the original value. So to do that, all you have to do is log into Infusionsoft, go to your admin settings, and we're going to create some custom fields. So I'll just add a field, and we want to preserve the original GA source. I'm just going to do that for now, just one field. So I'm going to add this under my iTracker fields just to kind of keep everything together. So we have original GA source, and then these are my standard fields that iTracker uses. So in the member section, I'm just going to refresh this page, go to the field preservation, and I'm going to map GA source to original GA source and click save. So at this point, let's give it a quick test. I created a URL, so I'm just going to copy that, and the source on this URL is Facebook. So I'm just going to go to the URL directly, and iTracker should capture all this data and then push it into the contact record. So we'll do test106 at test.com, submit that off, we'll verify this, and then inside Infusionsoft, let's look at that record real quick. So in some cases, you'll have the lead source available immediately, and that's if you're using a standard Infusionsoft form. If you're using something like Gravity forms or lead pages or something like that, the lead source might not be set immediately, and the same with the custom fields. So right now we're pushing this tracking data into this contact record, and that process can take up to a minute or so. To kind of show you where that process happens, you can go to the API Sync tab, and here's the data that we've captured, and we're just kind of waiting to pair this data with a contact record and then push it into Infusionsoft. So I'm just going to refresh this, and here in a minute we've paired it. So it's pending. I'm just going to refresh Infusionsoft, and the data did get pushed in, but the original GA source field is not set yet. That's because once we push this data into the contact record, we then trigger an HTTP post. And in that post back process, we apply tracking tags, we do the geo IP data lookup based on the IP address, we preserve custom field values, we do a lot of things depending on your advanced settings. So here in about a minute, this field should get set. So let me refresh the page and let's see if it's set by now. Yeah, it got set. So what we did is we copied whatever was in this field, we copied it over to the original GA source field. So now what happens if later this same contact record comes back through, but they do something like Google AdWords or something like that? All these field values are going to get overwritten. So let me just look at it. This was test 106. So what we'll do is I have another custom URL down here. I'm going to copy this, and let's see what happens when I convert again, but using different tracking data. So this source says AdWords, and the old one said Facebook. So I copied that. We'll go to this URL, and we'll do test 106 at test.com. And we'll submit that off. We'll verify that. And at this point, we have data for AdWords, and we're going to try to pair this to a contact record. So let me just, at this point, let me close some windows, and let's go to that contact record. Now, for this test 106 lead, the lead source will not get overwritten. It never gets overwritten. The only way you can overwrite this is if you manually change their lead source inside Infusionsoft. So that will always stay the same, regardless on how many times they convert later. And on the iTracker 360 tab, there is the GA source set to AdWords. The GA content is source field and PPC. So if you look at the URL that I wrote or that I built, those are all the values right there. They overwrote the original custom fields, but the original GA source of Facebook is still preserved. So because this value, it was set, we're not going to overwrite it, ever. So we basically just copy the GA source and we put it over here, and that's how that works. So the original GA source is preserved. So that's the custom field preservation. Now, there's also, if you noticed on that page, there's a little note at the bottom that says custom field preservation is triggered on the HTTP postback. So let me show you how to trigger this manually. So what I'll do is on this record, I'm just going to remove all of his values out of here, and I'm going to click save. And so I'll go back to that GA source and I'll do test, and I'm going to click save. So imagine he has this record has a GA source value, but this is empty. So I'm going to show you how to manually trigger this whole postback process. If you go to the API sync process, there's your postback URL that you need. So I'm just going to copy that. And on this record, I'm going to run an action set. I'm going to do apply actions. And I'm going to send an HTTP post to another server. I'm going to paste that URL in there, click save, and I'm going to apply these actions. So we just sent an HTTP post for this contact record. The post was sent. It's now queued up within iTracker, and within a minute or so, this field should get copied over to this field. So I'm just going to pause the video, and I'm going to wait for that postback process to finish. If you're curious where it is, if you go into the API sync page, I guess since we've already completed one, it's not showing up immediately, but let me just refresh. There's this debug log here for these postbacks. So if you go to that debug log, it'll show you that there's one postback that's currently in the queue waiting. And let me just go back. So at this point, I'm just going to wait for that postback to finish that we manually triggered. And if I refresh this page, let's see if it's ran so far. Yeah, it already ran. So all we did is we manually triggered the HTTP post, and it copied that field value over to that field value. So that's the whole HTTP post deal. We trigger that automatically, but you can manually trigger it. So that's the custom field preservation feature. If you have any questions, just submit a support ticket or shoot us an email. Thanks.